Okay, so it's time. You were saying how you like Blackmagic stuff, but it was always a little out of your price point.
Definitely.
Let's look at something that's a bit more within your price point.
Cool.
You may remember I'm a big fan of the Panasonic cameras, the HDHMC 150s, just because they're high quality. You know, they were about $3,000. They were not too expensive. They were all in one, sort of a camera studio on your shoulder.
Yeah, no, I like using that camera when we're out in the field and stuff.
Super nice camera, super simple to use, but one of the things that's always sort of been lacking for me is the interchangeable lenses. I would love to be able to swap out the lens when I need a super wide shot, go to a zoom lens, a telephoto when I need something a little closer. There are adapters I can screw onto the end of the barrel for that camera, but that's not the same.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And that's really what has me so hot and bothered about these. These are the Blackmagic Micros. I've got the Micro Cinema and the Micro Studio. So this is a 1080p camera right here. This is a 4K camera. Let's start with the 1080p because this thing is pretty spectacular. So this is the package. I mean, it's basically what they tried to do with the design philosophy is they wanted an action camera format, but with the quality and flexibility of a cinema style camera. This is for those people who want a quality camera, but they don't want to risk that $15,000 rig.
Right.
And they've done so many things right. First of all, this is an active micro four-thirds lens mount. That means that you can use all of those lenses that are coming out with the new DSLRs. This also has active control, so I can use focus iris control with the proper lens.
Very cool.
You know, so if I want to control everything centrally, I can do that. Inside, I've got a super 16mm sensor, which is just, it's fantastically light sensitive. I get a nice big picture. Now, this is something that's like Leo quality. Leo likes these kinds of sensors, these kinds of sizes. It's going to have, you've got a internal stereo omnidirectional microphone along with a 3.5mm audio in. So if I need to hook up an external microphone, I can use that here. I've got buttons for record, play, rewind, menu, and power, so I can control everything here. Now you will notice there's no screen. So unlike, say, one of the new GoPros that has a screen on the back, this doesn't. This really is designed to be a camera unit that's connected to something else, or, and I'll show you in a bit, set up on a quadcopter.
Yeah.
Now, as for my ports, I've got a standard SD card slot. This will support both SDHC and SDXC memory cards. I've got HDMI Out. This thing will use Canon batteries, which are very common. In fact, I will show you in the next episode how these same batteries are shared on the Blackmagic screens.
That's awesome, because they could have just done the proprietary thing.
Precisely. They could have said, hey, it's a Blackmagic battery, it costs $300. Like, no, look, a lot of people already have Canon. Why not just take a Canon battery and pop it in? Which also means it'll work with the expanded capacity Canon batteries if I want a lot of time on this thing. Yeah. It's also got, and this is the part that really sort of sold it for me. It's got this expansion port. It looks like a little serial port or VGA port on the end here. What I can do is I can connect it to this, or I can make my own harness. And with this harness, I get a lot. So what I have really quickly, of course, there's power. There's also LANC. That's the Logic Application Control Bus for Sony. So if I want to sync this, so if I'm like syncing multiple cameras, this has the ability to do that.
That's cool.
It's got genlock. It's got 4 analog PWM and 18-channel S.Bus. People who haven't watched our quadcopter episodes are saying, what's that? Well, it means this is ready to be hooked up to your receiver so you can control the functions of the camera from your transmitter if you're going to be using this on a quadcopter.
Or you don't even have to be using it on a quadcopter.
Anything. You can use PWM. So we've played with PWM so many times on this show, but I can use that to control everything from the iris to the zoom. Or to say the gimbal that it's attached to. So I can use pan, tilt, and zoom all through my transmitter. I mean, already that's ridiculous. That's absolutely fantastic. So that's the hardware. Let's talk about the specs. So with this awesome sensor, I'm going to get 13 steps of dynamic range. That Ursa did 15. This is 13. That's pretty dang good. And remember,
and that's form factor?
That's the form factor. So 13 stops. Remember, a stop, anytime I talk about a stop, it means I'm either doubling or halving. A stop up, I'm doubling. A stop down, I'm halving the amount of light. Which means, think about that. The amount of light this can deal with, from the very least to the most, 13 stops. So 13 doubles. That's amazing. A GoPro does like 6.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want really dynamic range, if you want all those colors, that's what you're going to get with this.
Very cool.
Also, it records in Cinema DNG RAW or Apple ProRes 422 at 220 megabits per second. It'll do 1080p, 23.98, 24, 25, 29, 97, 30, 50, and 59, 94, and 60.
Wow.
So I mean, I've got basically all the resolutions I'm going to want, and let's use it a little bit. What lens do I want to put it on?
I like that it also has a little mount on the top if you want to attach like a camera, or not a camera, but like a light or something,
Yeah.
and then
3 on the bottom, which is pretty standard. So let's do this. I borrowed these lenses from Leo, so let's not break them. They're not the best glass. I could get much better glass, like the $10,000 lens he has, but I felt not comfortable.
I don't know if he trusts you with that.
Borrowing that. So I'll turn it on. Oh, you know what helps when you want to turn it on?
Battery?
Yeah, they like those. There we go. Okay, let's go and hook this thing up. So this is, well, it's fantastic. It's spectacular. I really love the way that it looks. I'm going to show you some of the menu system here. I think I'm outputting 1080p 30 frames a second at the moment on this, but this is what we...
And the way you know that it's on is there's a little light on the top.
Yeah, a little light on the top.
I guess it turns red when you're recording.
Precisely. I mean, I don't have a memory card in here right now, so it's not going to record, but here we go. So...
Oh, hey. Whoa.
Okay, I'm a little washed out right now. I don't have the settings right. And this is not a lens that supports autofocus. So, hold on. Wait.
It's so dramatic looking.
So dramatic. Wait, so doge. And actually, let's go and jump into the menu. Let's not make people dizzy here for a second. Oh, jeez, I'm getting
steady yourself.
I know what. Unfortunately, it's a 75 millimeter, so it's not,
Oh yeah.
Go into the menu system here. So I can choose my codec. In this particular case, I'm doing RAW. I'm probably not going to shoot in RAW all that often, just because that uses up a ridiculous amount of space.
Padre, shoot RAW or don't shoot at all, is what I say.
Dynamic range, I can set my dynamic range for, let's say, I got it film right now. Let's, wait, come here. It's hard looking up and down here. So frame rates, iris control. Right now I've got set for ISO of 1400, of 400. I can go all the way up to 1600 if I really want to bring it in. But just like a real camera, if you do that, you're going to start bringing in the grain here.
Yeah.
The menu system is not the friendliest, but it does do everything you need it to do. So I can play with color temp here, all the way from 28 up to 65K, depending on what you need to set it for in the studio. But I mean, as a unit, this is probably one of the most capable cameras I've ever played with. And here's the thing: if you go to the link for this, Alex, it's $1,000.
Wow.
I mean, this is something that just a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have expected to pay $3,000 for.
That is
at
insane.
The least. And it works really well. It looks really well, and I have used it on a quadcopter. In fact, Alex, we've got there's a webpage I put in there, some of the demos. You can go ahead and run through some of those just to show them what it looks like. The film quality, just look at that. I mean, if you know what you're doing, if you combine this with the right lens, if you shoot properly, it looks really, really, really good.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, this looks like movie quality.
It is movie quality. I mean, and it's for people who, if you've used a DSLR, if you're used to using a DSLR, this will feel right at home. It's just a lot smaller.
That is cool.
Yeah. So this is the Cinema Micro, or the Micro Cinema. This is the one that they've really designed to be sort of the action camera out and about. This is the one that you would take to say CES. You would put this on a wooden camera frame along with a large screen on the back. And I mean, this is far more capable than the Panasonic I was using. Yeah. I will say one thing though, and you know this, and Leo really, really knows this.
What's that?
When you use cameras like this, you will soon start hating every lens you have, because every lens you have is never as good as you need it to be. And so you always spend more and more on a good piece of glass.
Well, if I've learned anything from Leo, or what he's told me, is that if you buy good glass, it's an investment.
It really is.
Like it stays the same price.
It spoils you though, because I played around with Leo's lens, and now the lenses I have at home, I'm like, stupid lens.
It's the lens's fault.
My shots don't pop because of the lens. I should get a $10,000
It's a slippery slope. Yeah. It's amazing how much the bodies have come down in price, but the lenses will always stay the same.
Well, the thing is, quality glass is quality glass, and I mean, they craft them the same. So the technology for these sorts of sensors and the electronics around the sensors will come down, but that glass still needs to be ground. That's not going to come down much.
Pretty cool.
All right, so that is our 1080p sort of action cam.
Right.
The reason why I would suggest something like this for a studio is because you can get all of the functionality of a DSLR or of a handheld camera, but at a lower price point with higher quality, with more expandability. I mean, this is, if you can stand the learning curve, and there is a learning curve to using a higher end piece of equipment, and it's not a point and shoot. This is not turn it on and forget it. This is a very, very good choice.
Yeah, I think the only real downside is that you don't have any way of interfacing with it unless you have like an extra screen.
And believe it or not, we're going to cover that in the next episode. What? Go figure. All right, let's take a look at the 4K, because there's not a lot of streaming going on in 4K, and actually I wouldn't stream in 4K because most people don't have the ability to receive a 4K stream in any sort of way that does it justice. I mean, even over YouTube Live, which you can stream in 4K, a lot of times you get artifacts and compressing just because the pipes just aren't ready for that, right? But some people still like the ability to be able to stream in 4K. So what if you could take that, have a 4K sensor, and then broadcast in 1080p now and switch to 4K when people are ready for it?
In the future,
And that's what we get with this. This is the Blackmagic Blackmagic Design Micro Studio Camera 4K. Alex said we have a link for this. A little bit more expensive, so $1,300. And most of the customer reviews are all, I didn't like it because it was too hard to use.
There's only 3, so not a really wide net there.
Not a super wide net. It is, again, there's a learning curve to this, but this is a fantastic device. In fact, one of the reasons why I asked Blackmagic to loan us these units is I wanted to figure out which one I wanted, and I'm pretty sure I'm going with this.
You think so?
Yeah, because I have recording devices. I have an SDI recording device already, a Panasonic. This will work with that. I tested that, and so I'm like, well, if I don't need the onboard recording, why not get the 4K?
Yeah, and sometimes I like to shoot things in 4K, and then if I'm going to take stills or something like that, or a time lapse, shoot it in 4K and then crop it. You know, it's much easier to crop later on.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the design philosophy. So here's our camera. This is really for those people who want 4K quality in places where, say, a larger format 4K camera won't fit. I mean, I can put this in a corner where a red camera would never fit. I could mount this outside of a car if I wanted to get that car chase scene. And I'm risking a $1,300 body and maybe a $300 lens versus a $15,000 camera. Now, again, if you use a DSLR, this is pretty much going to be the same workflow as a DSLR. So if you don't want to change up your workflow, this is a really good use. But ultimately, the differentiation they make between the cinema and the studio is this was really designed for studio use. It does not have an onboard recorder. There is no SD card slot. All this will do is we'll take the image and it will push it out either through HDMI or through the SDI outputs. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware. Inside of the cinema, I've got a 16mm sensor, right? Here, I've got a 13.056 millimeter by 7.322 millimeter. That is a huge 4K sensor. That is a wonderful piece of silicon right there. Again, I've got an active micro 4/3 mount, supports focus and iris controls on all the supported lens. I've got SDI input and output, and both of them will do 1.5G, the standard 270 megabits per second, 1.5G, 3G, and 6G, so I can get super high bit rates on this thing, as well as an HDMI output, but the HDMI output will only do 1080p. Here's the cool thing though, it will output to both at the same time. So if I wanted to put a monitor, so I can always see it, like we have here at the studio, I could put a monitor right here, and then this side goes to the switch. And that's a cool feature. I mean, for me, that would do it. I mean, that's what makes it so useful in the studio. Also has an integrated mic, plus a mic in if I want to put audio through here. It also has a talkback. So, and if you want to set up a studio where like your director can talk back to you, you can hook your headphones up to this, and they can talk to you through the control channel.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
How cool is that? It's also got the expansion port, slightly different layout than I have on the cinema. This has a power, LANC, S.Bus, PTZ output. So you can mount this on a PTZ, and you can control this through the SDI control.
Oh, that would be great.
And actually, in the next episode, I'm going to remind people of a little device that does just that.
Nice.
Also has genlock and a B4 lens control. So, basically, this is one of these cameras where if I put this on a PTZ mount with the appropriate lens, the director, because this can actually be controlled through the TriCaster, our director could move it, focus, zoom in and out.
Wow.
And
4K.
at this quality.
Yeah.
So that's the hardware. Let's talk about the specs. Of course, it's a 4K camera, so this is going to do 4K. It's got 3840 by 2160 and 1920 by 1080. It'll do both of those resolutions. 4K, it will do 23.98 frames per second, then also 24, 25, 29.97, and 30. At 1080, it will do 23.98, 24, 25, 29, 97, 30, 50, 59, 94, 60, 50 interlaced, as well as 59.94 interlaced and 60 interlaced. So again, all of my favorite flavors of high def.
Yeah.
Okay, now, of course, it's going to be using the same Canon system, so same Canon batteries. And now let's take a look at how it's actually going to look. Which lens do you think we should use for this one, Brian?
Yeah, let's go with that silver one.
This is so this is fixed 75 millimeter. This might be a bit too much. What's that?
This is 40 to 150 millimeter.
40 to 150. Okay, let's try that. We're probably going to make people really sick.
Zoom in.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, when you use these, you're probably going to want to have a tripod.
Yeah, go figure, huh?
Silly like that. Okay, let this come back up. And now, again, what I like about this particularly is the fact that I can output simultaneously to HDMI and SDI. Yeah. It gives me a really nice feel for this. So are we getting a feed from this yet?
Ooh, looks like it.
Zoom back out.
Woo.
Whoa.
Oh, who's that? I've never seen that guy before.
Oh, I like this. This is Alex.
Enhance. Enhance. Zoom.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. So, but if I take a look at the menu system here, it looks a lot like the. I don't want to mess with the resolution, but I can have gain controls, white balance, basically everything you would expect from a higher end camera. Hold on.
And the same amount of stops?
No. So this is 11 stops versus 13.
Okay.
So this has a slightly less dynamic range, but I find the color in this to be nicer than, by the way, what's our color temp here again? Is it 47?
4800.
4800? Yeah, oh, 4800. Okay, good. So that's matched to our lights now, so that's giving us true white. I've just scratched the surface. One of the things about Blackmagic cameras, and you alluded to this, Brian, is, you're going to get a lot of features, but then you have to know how to use the features.
Right.
The features do you no good if you can't actually run them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to know what you want.
Yeah. And speaking of what you want, that's what we need to talk about, because between these two, I've got they are in a very nice place. This is the camera where I basically have a self-contained studio. This is the action cam. This records on SD on the camera. I do need a way to view the output, but it still works pretty much like every other camera I know. This, because it has no internal recording, I really would only use this inside of a studio unless I want to carry around a digital recorder with me.
Right.
But it's going to work pretty much the same way that this works. But it gives me 4K, it gives me slightly better color reproduction, and it also gives me that dual output that I really, really like.
Yeah, see, for my situation, if I were going to get one of these cameras, I would like the action cam kind of aspect of it. So I'd be wanting to go out in the field, really utilize the size of it. And so I would probably go with this one.
Really?
Just because...
Because it's got the internal recorder.
The internal recorder, yes. And as much as I would like to record 4K video, most of the stuff that I work on or work with now, like 1080 is more than enough for my needs.
See, I see that, and actually, I will admit that I'm probably going to get the 4K, but 99.999% of the time I will be recording in 1080p.
Yeah.
Because here at TWIT we output 720. So the 4K
exactly.
But the other thing about this is it does have two more stops. So it is a bit more light sensitive. But with the 4K, I think I prefer the way that it does the color. I think looks nicer on the 4K.
Well, that's why you just shoot RAW, and then you can change all that post.
Well, see, and that's the other thing. I understand why professionals want to shoot RAW or ProRes. It totally makes sense. I get it. But those files are way too big for me. All my stuff is AVC HD. So what I would end up doing, if I got this, I would end up hooking this up to my my recorder and recording 1080p on AVC HD, just because I want to be able to store everything. I don't want to have to chalk everything every time I'm done with a project. So the same thing I'm going to be doing with that is what I'm going to be doing with this. This is going to be hooked up to a 1080p recorder in AVC HD. It means that I am not using anywhere near the capacity of the resolution.
Right.
It means that I'm actually down converting to a format that's not going to do the image and the sensor and the glass any justice.
Right.
But it does mean that it's going to be more useful for me in the long run, which is why I'm going to go with this, because I'm going to hook this up to a little screen on the side, and that will be my preview screen, and this is going to go over to my switcher.
Nice. Yeah, that's a pretty sweet setup then.
I don't know. Okay. Now, in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to show you what you actually do with these cameras. So if you decide to go one way or another, you need a way to broadcast it. Now, you could go, again, the twit route and get yourself a nice switcher and an encoder and a TriCaster and pay a tidy sum of money. But remember, we want to keep this project under $3,000.
Yeah.
I've got a little box that not only will accept up to 4 inputs from your laptop, from your cameras, even from a browser built into the box, but has integrated into the box streaming to both Twitch and YouTube Live.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
We're going to be bringing that up in the next episode of Know How.